A standoff between a high school Trump supporter and a Native American activist has become a symbol of the cultural divide in the United States. The debate is over this video and whether it shows an arrogant high schooler mocking a war veteran. Well, millions on social media seem to think that's the case. But have they jumped to conclusions? And is there more to this story than what one YouTube clip can show? Well, what's going on in America's culture war to spark such a debate? To discuss this, we're joined now from Calabasas, California, by conservative Hollywood director Robby Starbuck, who's also a friend of the Trump family. And in Huntington Beach is writer and activist Sabina Khan-Ibarra. I thank you both for joining us here on the Newsmakers. Sabina, the incident happened and it blew up, right? It's invariably going to blow up on social media and then traditional media picks up on it. Was it a microcosm of the current culture wars right now in the United States?
Definitely, for sure. The issue with, so I would like to say that for this particular issue, there wasn't enough information before the hashtag blew up. Mm-hmm. But I do feel that it is something that I'm glad did blow up, and there's something we are discussing because it is definitely a reflection of what is going on in the United States as a whole. So I'm glad we're having the conversation, even if what happened, I have issues with the way it happened.
Okay, so for example, you had this kid, right, 15 years old, center of attention now. My producers tell me it's called call-out culture. I'm too old, So call-out culture. This thing happens. People get angry. Some would feel the kid has been targeted unfairly. Would you agree with that?
I think they shouldn't, like I said, we shouldn't have jumped to conclusions and, chosen a side. But I think once research had done, I think it was very important that this issue did come to a light and that the boy was held accountable for his actions, along with everybody else that was involved in this issue.
Robby Starbuck, is it important that we're talking about this on international television today?
Yes, it is. And first, I'd like to start out by making a correction. The man that the boy was standing in front of is not a war veteran. His records were pulled yesterday. He lied about serving in the Vietnam War. He never even served overseas. In fact, his time in service, he went AWOL 4 times. So
okay, well, we're going to double check that, right? Okay, so Robby, yeah, as far as we understand, he's a Vietnam War vet, but you're putting this out there. We'll double check it. And we'll issue a correction if it is true. Okay.
Other news organizations have confirmed the report. But yeah, no, feel free to check. I think part of the problem here is checking, So with that first video, it shows a very small part of the confrontation. And that's the problem with call-out culture, is that people are attaching to the very first thing that they see and reacting to it. There's another hour and a half of video where this group, where it starts. And that's with the Black Israelites. They called these boys horrible, horrible names, including a young black boy at Covington Catholic School was racially attacked by these guys. And his friends, all the boys from Covington Catholic, came to the defense of their friend who is a Black American. So these boys acted appropriately. And they did not approach these adults. The adults approached them. They were standing there waiting for their buses when the adults approached them. And the kids reacted, the best way they could to the situation. None of them said anything, racially divisive to anybody.
Sure, that is a bit debatable though, right? I mean, Robby, because you can't, there's claims that racist statements were made and you can't quite make it out when you watch the full video. Although eyewitnesses who were there say that racially charged statements were made by the boy. So we can't be absolutely certain, can we, Robby?
I can see what's on video, and my eyes aren't lying to me, so I feel comfortable saying that the boys didn't say anything along those lines.
Right. Sabina, Robby's saying ultimately everybody's made too much of a big deal of this, and it's an example of the negative aspect, the other side of the coin of call-out culture, rather than the positive one that you touched upon earlier on. Tell me.
So in this particular instance, there were other videos showing that people from the boys from this group had also heckled some girls or some women that were, protesting or walking by. But in terms of the call out culture and the negative aspect, like I said, is that sometimes we don't do enough homework. But I think the call out culture is something that people who are in the place of privilege or people who are in the place of power are using as a way to not be held accountable for things that they should be held accountable for. Why was this happening? Why were these? Why was this boy standing there?
Tell me, Sabina. Sorry to interrupt you. Tell me, this kid, Nick Sandmann, with his "Make America Great Again" hat, what should he be held accountable for? What did he do?
So so I don't know enough about this, but from what I see, that I think that if these boys, from what I've read, they left a supervised group and they went off and they did this. What they did is they surrounded.
Okay, let her finish, Robby.
That's
finish your point,
They were
Sabina.
waiting for the buses for their school.
Okay, finish your point, Sabina, and then Robby can come in.
Okay, so so these boys are heckling. There's a lot more of these boys. There was, I think, 5 Israelites. There were a few Native Americans, and these boys were, even if they weren't doing anything physically, they hadn't said anything. The presence was a dominating presence, a presence of threat. And the way that they were heckling and shouting, their chants, in response to this native who was elder, who was beating the drum, is something that says a lot about how we are. And the MAGA hats in itself is a very antagonistic piece of clothing to be wearing in front of natives.
Certainly, of course. If you're on the other side of this in the debate within the United States, the other half of the country, that's debatable as well. Clearly, the hat itself is enough to irritate people at the very least. Robby, some housekeeping before I get your response. Do you trust Snopes?
No.
Well, okay. Well, anyway, I don't have my phone on me in studio, but my producer just had a look on Snopes, and they say that the claims by conservative media that Nathan Phillips was not a war vet can be neither proven nor unproven right now. That's where they stand on this as fact.
Snopes doesn't have a service record, but you can go to other major media outlets, search it. Major media outlets like Fox have confirmed it.
Okay, so they're saying what Fox is saying can't be proven at the moment. I'm going to hang a little question mark over that, give you the benefit of the doubt for now, but respond to Sabina.
I would say the only thing I would agree with Sabina on, because there's some stuff there that just, I can't even touch. It's kind of ridiculous to treat these boys this way. But the only positive about call out culture is that, we've seen the situation with the Me Too movement in the United States. I think it is, and around the world. And I think that is a net positive, to hold people accountable for their bad behavior, especially towards women, but towards men too. And I think that when we hold adults accountable for how they treat children, then call out culture is a good thing. So there's sort of a reverse call out happening now for how the way adults jump to conclusions about these kids. And we've seen a lot of apologies. In fact, I posted something about a Congresswoman, Ilhan Omar here, asking her to delete her tweet because it was filled with lies about the boys. And Trump Jr. retweeted it, and Ilhan has now deleted her tweet. And this has happened across multiple, Democrat Congress people, newsmakers all around the globe, where they jump to conclusions. Now they're deleting their tweets, and it teaches them a lesson. Adults should not be jumping to conclusions about children, and we shouldn't be attacking children, trying to dox children and ruin their lives. This is attached to those boys for the rest of their lives, and they didn't say anything wrong.
Sabina, I'm someone who came across the Black Hebrew Israelites, as they call themselves, when I lived in D.C. They used to hang out outside the Chinatown metro station. They have a tendency to raise the temperature wherever they are and be pretty provocative, right? Might all of this be one major overreaction to the fact that this pretty hardcore group was just setting the place on fire, at least the tone, and therefore it created a bit of tension, and it's now blown out of proportion?
There's many different protests going on. Initially, the boys thought they were Muslim, from what I've read, and so even the mother of one of the boys had said, "Oh, they thought they were Muslim, and then they later find out they're Israelites." The reason it maybe the attack shouldn't have happened towards the boys, but the culture that is there, where these white males are in in this dominant position. And it's just a reflection of, like I said, what's going on in culture. And that, I think, is what everybody had a reaction to. And maybe instead of talking specifically about the boys, we talk about the parents and the culture that created such an event to occur. Talk about the how this country is being polarized by two very different ideologies, or many different, but it's somehow, like I said, polarized in two. These white men in power with privilege, these boys will grow up to be men in power. And then the fact is that, again, the marginalized are usually the ones doing the calling out. I mean, the guest said, Me Too movement, the Ferguson, Missouri, we never heard, or we hardly heard about police brutality. Smaller things. There's constantly the marginalized who call out. So then after this event, the proof is the boy was able to secure PR to help him, change the narrative or form the narrative and to give a perspective. Whereas the other people, first of all, were not given the same platform, the opportunity.
Okay, so let me ask you about that, or let me rather take that and pass it on to Robby. As the white male on the panel here, firstly, do you consider yourself in a privileged position? And is Sabina right that it takes those who are punching up from the bottom to shed light on these things? And do you agree that the mainstream, if you like, decided to bend over backwards to give the young boy a voice now in the aftermath, and that is a part of his privilege?
No, I mean, it's ridiculous. I'm actually Cuban. I'm the son of a Cuban refugee. So I would technically be one of those marginalized groups she's talking about, and I think it's ridiculous. I don't have any problem with white privilege. I think that white privilege doesn't exist. I think that economic privilege exists. I mean, are those kids not allowed to wait for their bus on the top of steps because they're white? I mean, it sounds like entirely ridiculous. And I think anybody with a brain thinks that it's entirely ridiculous that these kids can't stand and wait for their bus. And I agree with what you said about the Black Israelites. They're a group that they provoke people intentionally. They're trying to create situations like this, and I blame them the most for what happened. What they did was just, I mean, if you've watched the video, I don't want to repeat the things they said. It's grotesque. You can't say worse things than what they said. So, no, I don't agree with her at all. I think everything she said is foolish.
Robby, it's 2019. We're, 2.5 years into the Trump presidency. What does it say about America today? Is the country, at least culturally, maybe not fully politically, but at least culturally as divided as ever, as exemplified by the discussion we're having now and the aftermath of this amplification of this incident?
Absolutely. I mean, you couldn't have said it better. We are the most divided I've ever seen culturally. We're living in a time where I feel like because of the proliferation of social media and all these different news sources and everything, we're living in 1,000 fragmented realities. And when you have 1,000 fragmented realities, you have all these people who feel like they're being gaslit by other people because what they know to be true is suddenly challenged in a way that certain people can't deal with what's facing them in terms of something questioning their reality. So we need to get better at teaching people, how to go through this discourse in a healthy way and how we can move forward together despite disagreement, because what's going on now just isn't healthy. It's not something that we can sustain.
Well, I mean, this is a good example of healthy discourse. The two of you are on opposite ends of this, but it was really interesting chatting to both of you. I hope you both come onto the program sometime soon. Thanks again.